Hey, Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Basra, daf Kuf Samach Zayin. We're almost at the end here. And we're going to start from Kuf Samach Vav Omid Beis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. And let's make it big. Okay, so we're discussing over here certain words written in the document, and you don't know what they are, so you always give I guess, the benefit of the doubt to the borrower. So the one that's holding onto the document, which is the lender, he gets the raw hand. So that's what we're discussing over here, because he's trying to extract money. And when you try to extract money from somebody, you have to be 100% proven that you're in the right. So listen to this story. Who the Hava Kosobe? There was this document that was written, Shismea Vizuze, 600 plus a zuz. 600 what? Shalcha, so it doesn't say 600 watts. It wasn't clear. The scribe wrote it very unclear. Shalcha Rav Shrevya Kamei Dabaya. So Rav Shrevya asked this question to Rabaya. Do we say like this? Shish Meya Istre, that the guy meant 600 sloim, which is a larger currency, vizuza and a dime, like a smaller currency. Oy Dilma, so that's the extreme. Oy Dilma, or maybe it meant Shismei Aprite Vizuze. Maybe it meant 600 pennies and a zuz. Because you could go from the lowest currency to the highest currency. You don't know. What did the person mean in the star? Or Malay, so Abai first ruled out that that's not the lowest currency. Del Prute, you can exclude that it doesn't mean pennies. Why? The loy kisve b'shtar, you wouldn't write it that way in a star. You don't write 600 pennies. Dasuchi masken lehu, you would actually round it out to zuzim. You put pretis together and you actually make it into zuzim. So it would be like 3 zuz and 124 prutas, but you wouldn't single it out. Umashve luzuri is that we go to Kof Samach Zayin. So pennies you would put into zuzin, like so my amrit. So what's your other choice? Shish meya istre vizuze, that he meant 600 sloim, which is the highest denomination in a zuzim. That we wouldn't say. Yad bal hashtar ala tachtoina, the one who's holding the star, and this is the general rule for everything we're learning, that the Yad Bal Hashtar, the one that's holding on to the document, Al Hatachtoina, he has the underhand over here. So instead of saying that it means 600 sloim, which is the largest denomination, we will say it means 600 zuzim, right? 600 zuzim. Even though sometimes zuz, you can pack together 4 zuz into a selah, but sometimes you don't. So probably what it meant is 600 zuzim plus another zuz. And like you would say, you lent somebody $1,000. It doesn't mean you gave him singles. It means in $100 bills. So sometimes you can use the lower denomination and you mean it as even though you didn't put it together, 600 zuz and a zuz. You didn't mean sloim. So unless the holder of the document can prove he meant sloim, the higher denomination, we will give him the lower denomination, albeit we will not make it into prutis pennies. Amar Abaya, new Gemara. Hi, Abaya is giving you advice. Sometimes you are asked to write your signature on a piece of paper so they can verify your signature that you signed on a document. So you're signing a blank piece of paper. So Abaya advised, a man who has to show his handwriting in the court, he should not write his name on the bottom of a piece of paper. Because if you write your name on the bottom of the piece of paper, it might get into the wrong hands. You'll find an unscrupulous person will find that piece of paper and write on top of it that I agree to owe so-and-so, $1,000, and you have your name on the bottom. That's what it says. Dilma mashkich le acher, somebody else is going to find it. The kosev, and he's going to write on top of where you signed your name, the Masik Bezuzi, that you borrowed money. And therefore, even though there's no witnesses, but it's still an effective document whereby you will be able to collect from the Chosim B'nei Chayrim, freestanding possessions of the borrower, which would be you if you signed on the bottom of the page. Utanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Haitzi Olav, if the lender took out Ksav Yodai, a document that was written in the handwriting of the borrower, Shu Chayv Loi, that the borrower is obligated to pay. Goive, you can use that document min Chosim B'nei Chayrim from freestanding possessions, albeit you can't go into put a lien on property that was sold, but it's like a milva al peh, like a verbal loan, but you're still obligated to pay. That's why Abaye advised people that if you have to sign your name for whatever reason on a document, a blank piece of paper, sign it on the top of the page, not on the bottom of the page. Says the Gemara, three stories. Hahu Bazabina. No, there was the first Gemara says like a story. Hahu Bazbina. There was Bazbina is a tax collector, a Jewish tax collector. He bought the rights for taxes, and he came to Abaya. And now this tax collector was an unscrupulous person, but he wanted to pretend like he's a scrupulous person. He's a good person. Amalei. So he asked Abaya, Nechse leima chasimis yedai. Show me your handwriting. Write it on a piece of paper. Why would I need your handwriting on a piece of paper? Because he says, as a tax collector or a toll collector, if somebody shows me that he goes to your yeshiva, Abaya, and you signed on the bottom of the page, I'll let him pass through the toll without having to pay the toll because he goes through the yeshiva. He's a tzurva merabona. That's what he's saying. So, but I have to see your handwriting to see that he's an authentic yeshiva boy. When a young rabbi will come and show me that he goes to your school or whatever, and he has your signature on the bottom, I'll know how your signature looks. I'll allow him to pass without paying any taxes or tolls. So what did Rabbi do? Well, he knows he has to sign a little piece of paper, right? So So Abaya wanted to write the signature or his signature on the top of a piece of paper, like he taught. Have a konoged base. So the guy, the tax collector, was trying to pull the paper a little lower. He tugged on it so that Abaya will sign towards the bottom of the paper. So Abaya sensed the ruse that's being put on him to get him to sign at the bottom of the paper and then give it to the guy. You open yourself up to potential fraud. Amalei, so Abaya said, Kavar kadimuch rabbanim. The rabbis discussed people like you, and because of people like you, they demanded that when we sign our names, we should only sign at the top of the document. And therefore, don't try to pull me to sign on the bottom of a piece of paper. Amar Abaya. Abaya said another thing. If you have to write numbers on a document, from the number 3 to the number 10, don't write it at the end of the line. Let's say you're stating that you're borrowing money, right? So don't write the number 3 at the end of the line or the number 10 until the number 10. In other words, a 2-digit number, because the guy, if you're going to write the number 3, he's going to write in Hebrew the word 3 is shalosh, but you could so easily add the word yud mem to it, and it becomes shloshim, which is 30, right? Or shlosh meos, but you can easily turn shalosh to shloshim, or abba la'abaim, for 4 to 40. And therefore, if you're going to write the number at the end of the line, it opens itself up to fraud, because the holder of the document will just add a letter or two, and then you're going to be obligated to pay more. Maybe he's going to fraudulently write something. If you're going to have to write if you're going to have to, if it happens that you have to write the number 3 or shalosh in the document at the end of a line, you should write it 2 or 3 times throughout the document. So so you can end up putting the word shalosh somewhere in the middle of the document, in the middle of the line. And when a word is in the middle of something, it's very hard to add letters to it because it was written differently. So if someone tries to put fraud, it's much easier to put fraud in a word that comes at the end of the line than a word that becomes the middle of the line. And therefore, if you happen to have to write the number of whatever it is that you're borrowing at the end of the line, make sure you repeat it somewhere again and again in the document so that you're writing the same number in the middle of the line where it's clear what the number you meant, and therefore there will be no fraud on the document. Now the Gemara tells us a story. We're up to Kuf Samach Zayin, Omer Aleph, somewhere in the middle of the page, towards a little bit before the Mishnah, more before the Mishnah. 3 stories. Ahu Dahavit Kosev Bei Tlisu Bapardisa. A guy wrote a document that he bought a third of an orchard. Okay, that's very clear. He bought a third of an orchard. So the purchaser who had this document, he went Machke Legane the base. He crossed out the letter base, Vikari, and he bent it. He put he crossed out part of the base and turned it into a vav. Vishavye u pardesa. So you cross it out, and you just cross out the top part of the base and the bottom part of the base, and you're left with just a line, which makes it look like a vav, u pardesa. But now look at the document. You bought a tilsa, a third, u pardesa, and the entire orchard, and the pardes. The problem is, when you write it, when you cross things out, there's an extension. The vav doesn't look close to the pay, right? So Asa Lakama Abaya. So he came to Abaya, and Abaya started looking at the document. Amalei. So Abaya asked the purchaser, you're claiming you bought not a third of the orchard, but you bought the entire orchard. My tama and the tilsa u pardesa, my tama reviach le alma lahayvav. Why is there so much space between the vav and the pay? Why is there space there? Kafte uvaoide. Abaya just pressed the issue and sort of like forced it out of the person. Vaoide, and the person agreed that he did a fraud. So that's the Abaya seems to be very sharp in the ways of the world. Says the Gemara. Another story, and again Abaya had the sharp eye. Ahud have a kasabay. There was this document that said that a purchaser bought the inheritance from Menas Reuven v'Shimon Ache, from Reuven and Shimon, who are brothers. Okay, that makes sense. He brought the inheritance, but really there were 3 brothers there, and one of the brothers' names was Achai. That was his name. So Havale Acha Deshmei Achai. They had a brother that was named Achai. Azal. So the purchaser went and he mutilated the document and Kosev Bei Vav Vishavye Ve'achai, and he turned it into a Vav, and now it says Ve'achai. So he bought the property from Reuven Shimon and the inheritance belonging to Achai, the third brother, which is not what the document meant. So he put the word Ve'achai, except it's crushed in there. He tried to slip in a Vav. So also Abaya came and examined. They came to Abaya and he examined the document. Amalei. So he said, "My tama dochek le alma lahai vav kulahai." Why is this vav pressed in so close? It looks like somebody stuck it in there. Kafte. He already pressed the issue against this person and started questioning it. Va'oide, and the person admitted that he tried to do a fraud over here. Says a third story. Hahu story, there was this document that was signed by Rava and Rav Acha bar Ada. Rav and Rav Acha bar Ada signed the document. Now, this Rav Acha bar Ada lived a very, very long time. he was a student of Rav, and he also lived, 2 or 3 generations, and he lived to be a colleague of Rava. So Rava and Rav Acha bar Ada signed on a document. Also lekame de Rava. So they came from Rava and they asked him, "Do you recognize your handwriting?" Amalei, so Rava said, "Dein chasimis yadei tidihi." That is my handwriting. Well, it really wasn't his handwriting. The guy forged Rava's handwriting, and Rava just had one question: "Mi kamei de Rav Acha bar Ada lechasim milim oilam." I never remember that I signed a document along with Rav Acha bar Rav Ada. So what made this document a fraud was not that the guy didn't copy Rava's handwriting correctly, but Rava never partnered. He knew he never partnered with Rav Acha bar Ada to sign on a document. So Kafte, they forced the issue with the person holding the document, and he agreed that he's tried to forge Rava's handwriting and Rav Acha bar Ada's handwriting. So it was a forged document. Amalei, so Rava asked the question, I understand that you can forge my handwriting, because I have a pretty neat handwriting and it's easily forged. El Rav Acha bar Ada, who is an old man, his hand is constantly shaking. So the way he signs a document one way is never the same way that he's going to sign another document, and it's very hard to copy. How did you make your hand shake so that you could sign like Rav Acha bar Ada would sign? So the forger said, Anchi Yadei Mitzra. I put my hand, I started writing the document on a very narrow rope bridge. So when you're writing on a rope bridge, which is very shaky, your hands will shake, and that's how I did it. I stood on the way they draw water from the well, and my whole body was shaking. Azanuka is a place that you draw water from the pit, from the well. Okay, so now we begin the new Mishnah. Mishnah says, you write a divorce for a man. Now, he's not ready to give the divorce paper to his wife, even though his wife is not there. You're allowed to write the get, and the husband will hold on to the get and give it to his wife when he's ready. I guess there's no date on the get, because you're not supposed to write a date until you're ready to give the get. And you can write a scribe, because they didn't always have scribes coming to your town. And once in a while, a scribe came. So a woman can ask a receipt being written on her behalf that she received her ksuba, and she didn't really get her ksuba, but she wants to hold on to it so that when she collects her ksuba, she has a receipt to give her husband. And you can write that receipt for a wife, for a woman, even though her husband is not around. But on condition that the scribe must know that what they're saying is true. That if the man is saying, write a divorce for my wife, my name is Reuven, and I'm divorcing Rachel, he has to make sure that Reuven is indeed married to Rachel. Even though Rachel does not need to be present when he's writing the get, but he has to know who he is writing for. And same thing the woman. The woman says, write the receipt for my husband Reuven, and my name is Rachel. So he has to know that Reuven is married to Rachel. But the other spouse does not have to be present when this is all being written. But who pays for I guess the receipt, and who pays for the get? It's up to the husband. He gets billed, the fee that the scribe takes to do his work. He has to pay for that. We go to Amud Beis. You write a document for a borrower, even though the lender is not there, right? So, but if the borrower, the borrower should have it so that when someone lends him money, he'll be able to give the document to that lender and say, you see, I have a document ready that I borrowed from you. But you don't do it the opposite way. The lender should not have a document written that so-and-so borrowed from him unless the lender is present as this document is being written. And who pays for a loan document? The same thing. The borrower, he takes the brunt of paying for the scribe. He's not paying interest, but he's at least going to pay for the scribe. A seller could write a document that he's selling an item, even though the one he's selling to is not there. But the purchaser can't write the document that he bought something unless the seller is there, because maybe the purchaser will say, the thing is mine and never even paid for it. And who pays in that matter? Who pays the scribe? The purchaser, he's the one that pays for the scribe. Next part of the Mishnah. You don't write a commitment for an engagement or a marriage that the father says, "Oh, I'm going to give such and such for as a dowry for my daughter," and or the father of the groom says, "I'm going to give such and such to my son," only if they're both in agreement there, that they're both there at the same time. And the groom, he's the one that pays for the document. We're going to see more about this in the Gemara. When a person is a sharecropper or a contractor, right, on a property, you don't write that he's taken on this responsibility unless the owner of the property is there and the sharecropper or the contractor is there. The hamakabel noisin sachar, the one who gets the right to do the sharecropper, to work on the field, he's the one that pays for the scribe. Ein kaisrin shitrei beirim v'chol ma'aseh bezdin elamedash neim u'shneim noisin sachar. You don't write this called the document to choose a judge and any type of action of bezdin only if the two litigants are there and they both pay for the scribe. And you have a lawsuit in Bezdin, they both have to pay for the scribe. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel l'shteim kaisvim shnayim l'zela atzmai. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is a little cryptic over here. What exactly is he saying? And we'll just leave that for the Gemara. Okay, let's go to just another 2 minutes, and then we'll stop. The Gemara's question is that you don't write a document for a get for a person unless you know who his wife is. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Rav Yehuda Marav initially explained that all the scribe needs to know is the man's name and the woman's name. He has to make sure that if Reuven says, "Write me a get for my wife," all he has to know is for sure that the person asking him to do the job is Reuven. So Yosef, but he doesn't need to necessarily confirm the wife's name. He'll just do it on whatever Reuven says his wife's name is. So Yosef, Rav Safra, Rav Acha, Bar Huna, Rav Huna Bar Achina, Yosef Abaya Gabe, Yosef Abaya. They're all sitting around and they're asking this question: Shema ish beget in Shema ish loy, Shema ish b'shayve in Shema ish loy. That all the scribe has to know for certain is the name of the man, but not the name of the woman. He can just rely on the say so of the man. And when he's writing a receipt for a woman, all he needs to know is the name of the woman, but he doesn't need to be certain the name of her husband. He can just trust her. V'leichish, let us be concerned. Let's say a guy, Reuven, walks into a scribe and says, "Write me a get for my wife. Her name is Leah." Dilma kasav azal mantve leitzedahach v'zimna azal. Maybe he wrote a get for somebody else's wife. Somebody else, Reuven, is married to a lady Leah. And it's not his wife, but the husband, they share this common name, and he's going to give it to Leah. Or or you can have the opposite. If you write that Rachel received the receipt or received her ksuba, so Rachel, who didn't receive her ksuba, will give it to another man who's married to another Rachel. And that guy is going to hold on to that receipt that his wife took the ksuba. So basically, unless the scribe knows for certain the two parties that he's writing for, if he doesn't know for certain, you're opening up to a possible fraud. You have to read Rav says. When you hire a scribe to write a document, he has to know Shema Ish Beget, Vuadin L'Shem Isha. Shem Isha b'shoive v'ladin l'shem ish. He has to know for sure the name of the man of the get and the name of his wife. The spouse doesn't have to be there, but he has to know for sure the names of the people he's writing for. So the Gemara asks, Leichish, let us be concerned. L'shnei Yosef ben Shimon Adar be'ir achas dilma kasagita ba'azam mamte leitzadeheh. Even if you know for certain that Reuven is divorcing Rachel, and the scribe is writing Reuven divorcing Rachel, let us say that this Reuven doesn't want to divorce his Rachel, but there's a guy who's another Reuven that's married to Rachel, and he's going to take this document and give it to that other Rachel. How do you know? Because maybe there's in the same city two people have the same name. That both spouses have the same name. If you have two people named Yosef and Shimon married to the same different lady that has the same name, that living in one city, they cannot divorce their wives unless they're present in each other. So therefore, that will take care of that possible fraud. So Gemara asks one more question. V'leichish, let us be concerned. Dilma also the Mosa Achrisa or Machzele Shmei Yosef B'Shimon. A guy is gonna, like the Lahavdil, the guy with the New Jersey fake license. The guy is gonna go to another place, right? Move into the town and claim his name is Yosef ben Shimon. Nobody knows who he is. Because of Gittel Umamtele Itzidahach, and he's gonna write a git in this town, then go back to his old town and take the document which says Yosef ben Shimon, which is not his name, and he'll give it to the wife of Yosef ben Shimon. And so you're opening yourself up for fraud. If you don't know for certain, if you know somebody just moved into town and says his name, how do you know? If you know a guy who's is living in a place and he's has that name for 30 days, you don't have to be concerned that that may not be his name. What about loy ichsek mai? Let's say a guy moved into town, he didn't live there 30 days, wants to give a divorce for his wife, you don't know for sure, he told you his name is such and such. So how do you test him out that he's telling the truth? So Abaya says, Amar Abaya, the Kari Levani, you just try to call his name and he answers it. Then you know that's his name. If you like shock him, hey, Yosef, and he turns around, so we know he's telling the truth. Rav Zvid Amar, Ramoy Baramusa Zohar, a guy who's a forger, is a faker, he knows how to fake people out, and therefore he'll be careful when you call that name. He's going to answer to that name. So that's not enough. You have to have him there for 30 days. Somehow a relative will come by and you'll verify that indeed that's his name that he claims to be. And only then, if a person lives 30 days in a city, then the scribe could write the get. Okay, we'll stop over here.